All right, Matt. So what did Spartacus say when the lion ate his wife?
I have no idea.
Nothing. He was gladiator.
Man.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm not doing too bad, man. How are you?
Oh, all right. Surviving this storm. We got flash floods going and everything, so you might hear thunder. I don't know. That's not a sound effect that I added.
You might see Adam wearing a snorkel.
You might here in a minute. And I mean, I already had the power go out twice today, so that's a possibility tonight.
Oh, man.
So we'll see what happens. So we'll just talk fast, and maybe we can get through it before the power goes out.
If you hear splashing.
Yeah, and that's it. If you hear splashing, I might be sitting on a floaty here in a minute. But real quick, we want to say go over to patreon.com/graveyardtales. Sign up to become a patron. We've got 3 different levels that you can join. We think that all of them are a good deal. They're a good value for your money. You can skip, as a lot of people have said, I didn't make this up. I'm just copying all the other people that seem to have more patrons than we do. So that's why I'm saying it. Skip a cup of coffee and go get yourself a Patreon membership for us. But like I said, we have 3 different levels. We have a 1, 5, and a 10. All levels get a bonus episode a week. It's a shorter version of a Graveyard Tales episode normally. We will do something that doesn't have enough info to make a full Graveyard Tales episode, or we'll see an article that pertains to something along the lines of Graveyard Tales, and we'll put it out there on Patreon. So everybody gets that every week. Then our $5 and $10 every week get an ad-free audio and video version of the main episode if we have an ad that week. So if you like the show, don't like the ads, $5 and $10 levels of Patreon will get you ad-free. Then if you move up to the $10 a month, we have all of that, plus our $10 a month get our second show side quest. And that's a different take on me and Matt, if you would.
Yeah.
It's like if you were hanging out with me and Matt in Matt's living room. Mm-hmm. It's, we're trying to make the other one laugh. We're talking about random, goofy stuff. We're a little less censored on there. We don't censor ourselves like we do on Graveyard Tales. So it's like hanging out with us, and you can hear a funny story, get some maybe personal insight into me and Matt more than you would on Graveyard Tales. And we're enjoying doing it because it's totally different for us. And if you can believe it, Matt, we've done over 100 episodes.
I know, that's crazy. That is crazy to me. It doesn't feel like we've done it for that long, but we sure have.
No, it really doesn't. But if you don't want to do all that and you still want to help us out, go check out our sponsors. You can find their links in our show notes. And if you use that code or the vanity link that we've got in the show notes, it will show that company that you heard about them from us. And between Patreon and our sponsors, that's what allows me and Matt to keep doing Graveyard Tales and keeping it ad-free. Because we said from the beginning, Graveyard Tales will not go behind a paywall, and the only way we're allowed to do that is through our sponsors and our patrons. So we thank y'all very much for doing that. Now, on that note, Matt, I bloviated enough in the beginning of this episode. So why don't you tell us?
Bloviated.
Don't you like that word?
I like that word.
That just popped into my head for some reason. But why don't you tell us? What are we talking about tonight, brother?
All right. So tonight we are headed deep into the Australian outback.
Oh, yeah.
And when I mean deep, I don't mean like, oh no, my GPS lost its signal. Okay. I mean like red dirt, endless scrub, cattle stations the size of small countries, saltwater crocodiles that look at you like you're Uber Eats, man. Mm-hmm. And a landscape that is so ancient, it makes the pyramids in Egypt look like IKEA furniture.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But somewhere out there, allegedly, there is something big walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about a ridiculously large kangaroo. Okay. Yep. I'm talking about the Burrunjor. And if you've never heard of the Burrunjor, there's probably a good reason. Okay. But this thing is pretty unique. It's a little bit different than any other cryptid we've done. Namely because of its resemblance to a dinosaur that we all know and love.
Yep.
And you're going to find out more about that when Adam gets to talking about the description of this thing. I mean, it's like, well, you know the scene in Jurassic Park when they're sitting in the cars and they're waiting around and they see the water rippling in the cup.
Yeah.
Because something is shaking the ground. It's walking up.
Yep.
This is kind of what we're talking about. Okay. So
right.
So let's not wait. I mean, we got a lot to cover. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about the Burrunjor.
All right. So as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all this information. Everything we talk about is sourced and referenced there in our show notes. So you can see that we're telling you what our sources told us. Now, Burrunjor, I told Matt before we started this, Burrunjor sounds like a mispronunciation of my last name.
Yeah, it does.
So, Adam Burrunjor. And if I get tweets now that say Adam Burrunjor, I'm going to be upset.
I'm gonna make a Burrunjor with Adam's head on it.
That would be funny. If you do that, it may end up being one of our thumbnails. That may be what it is. Now, the name Burrunjor, it's used today for a giant predatory, quote, thunder lizard that is
that. I love thunder lizard.
Yep. And it's said to be 6 to 7 meters or around 20 to 25 feet long.
Yeah.
It walks on 2 legs. It's got a long tail and a large head. Its teeth are supposedly really sharp, and it has small clawed forelimbs. So what does that sound like?
Yeah.
Modern day descriptions explicitly sound like a Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah.
Or another large theropod from that time period. And like Matt said, it's roaming the Australian outback.
You know what's funny? You mentioned that this thing had really sharp teeth.
Mm-hmm.
We rarely ever do we hear about cryptids that have like ridiculously blunt teeth.
That's true.
I'm like, why not?
That's true.
Let's have some blunt teeth in here.
Like those fish that have human-looking teeth.
Oh God, yeah, that's creepy.
Right.
So now we need a T-Rex that looks like it's wearing dentures.
Mm-hmm. There's another AI photo to generate. Now, accounts that they range from, cryptid sites and folklore write-ups and everything. They tend to agree on a few core features about the Burrunjor. Like I said, it's around 6 to 7 meters or 20 to 25 feet long, and its estimated weight is several tons. So think about like two of my pickups.
Yeah, right.
Put together. That's how much this thing is supposed to weigh.
So you can see why it would shake the ground.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you drop my truck, it would shake the ground. Now drop 2 of them, and it's really going to shake the ground. It might shake the flagpole off your house. Now it's strictly bipedal. It does not ever drop down on all fours, and it's said to leave three-toed or tridactyl footprints that they're said to be 2 to 3 feet across. Think about, that's not length. That's from side to side. 2 to 3 feet from side to side. And the tridactyl footprint has led to people giving it the name Old Three Toes in some regions.
Old Three Toes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique name for this thing. I don't know how they came up with that for a three-toed footprint to call it Old Three Toes, but they did. Now, it has a giant reptilian body, a long, heavy tail, and a large head with sharp teeth, like I said. And the small clawed hands on the front are reminiscent of all the theropod dinosaurs that we have fossils of. So just think of the little T-Rex arms. That's what it looks like. Big, imposing dinosaur, and then it comes up to you and goes, meh, with its little arms.
Smacking at you.
Yeah. I just picture them as they're running for some reason. The arms doing this as they're running. Like it's actually trying to, like humans run with their arms swinging, but it's got little bitty arms.
So they just kind of flap?
Yeah. Yeah. Which that goes down a whole nother, the flapping wing thing. That goes down a whole nother aisle we don't need to go down. But some sources say that early Aboriginal descriptions include a feathered reptile, which links some scientific ideas about the theropods having feathers. But in a little bit, I'll mention the Aboriginal thing. But most Burrunjor narratives place it in remote parts of northern and central Australia, particularly the Northern Territory. The regions that have mentioned Old Three Toes is the Arnhem Land, areas around the MacArthur River, and the broader outback along what they call lonely roads like Stewart Highway. So that means nothing to me in Texas. So I know we have a bunch of listeners in Australia and New Zealand. So if y'all know these areas, hop in our Facebook group or something and describe these areas to us or send us pictures or something. So our listeners can get a good idea of that area. But the Burrunjor is said to prey on kangaroos and other large animals. And in more recent tales, it's said to steal cattle and camels out of farmers' lands that it comes into. So it's interesting to me that the prey seems to be evolving as humans start adapting the land. You know, it's not just sticking with just kangaroos. It's like, well, there's old Bessie over there. She looks tasty, so I'll go get old Bessie.
Right.
Now, some retellings claim that Aboriginal people can identify particular tracts of country as Burrunjor territory, and that other large animals avoid these areas supposedly because of this giant apex predator.
Okay, so where we begin? We're looking at Bidyadanga.
Mm-hmm.
Aha, first try.
Nice.
Which is a remote Aboriginal community south of Broome in the Kimberley region of Western Australia. An educationalist named Frankie Shoveler. I love that name because
that is a fantastic name.
Yeah, it sounds like a man whose fate is to go find things in the sand.
Yeah, an archaeologist or something.
Yeah, so he found something odd on the beach. Huge tracks. And not tracks like, oh, that's a great big dog track. He found like, that's an emu that's doesn't skip leg day tracks. Okay. Now we're talking giant, three-toed saurian tracks pressed into wet coastal sand, okay? And so Frankie filmed them. And the video, which you can still go see, made its way to YouTube. All you have to do is search up Footprints in the Sand by POM TV, POM TV. And when people started seeing this video, theories just started exploding, okay? Was it a giant emu? Okay? Is it a sea monster? Okay, is on the beach. Did something crawl out of the ocean?
Yeah.
Is it a dinosaur? Okay?
That's the logical explanation.
Is it somebody fooling around with like some fancy garden tools or something? You know, just making these weird giant three-toed shapes in the sand. So, I mean, all of that and everything in between came out after people started seeing this video.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently these tracks caused such a stir that multiple groups went out throughout the day to see them for themselves. Because, you know, nothing brings people together than like a dinosaur walking around your neighborhood.
Right.
I mean,
you want to get people together, have weird footprints. People are coming out to look at those.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Just make a weird footprint, okay?
Uh-huh.
Make it, and then just go start stamping it around your neighborhood and see what happens.
Yeah, you are going to bring your neighbors together. I promise.
That's exactly right. You know, so give it a shot. You know, you wonder why you've never met your neighbors. Go stamp some giant footprints in their yard and see what happens.
You want to talk to that cute neighbor that you've never had the guts to go over and knock on their door and talk to them.
Yeah.
Make some weird footprints and then just be out there looking at it one day when they're coming home.
Yeah, just make sure they're not like two Nike footprints right outside her bedroom window.
Valid point.
Know, those kind of footprints will get you some attention too.
You'll be talking to another group of people, but it won't be them.
But here's where things get a little interesting. Okay? Among the Aboriginal communities, stories of this massive reptilian creature called the Burrunjor have circulated for generations, supposedly. Not decades, not just since the invention of YouTube, generations, okay? And as I've said, the descriptions are pretty specific. Like Adam said, 25 to 30 feet tall, walking upright on these huge, powerful hind legs, two small, pretty well useless front-looking limbs, and mostly reptilian in appearance. Now, you don't want to jump to conclusions, but like Adam said, this sounds like a T-Rex.
Yep.
So
you don't want to jump to conclusions, but you will jump to conclusions.
You absolutely will. I mean, because what else are you going to think? You know, you hear that description, that's the first thing that pops into your head, and you're like, wait a minute. People saw a T-Rex walking around? Are you kidding?
Yep.
But, I mean, that's what they say. Now, these creatures are said to roam across the Gulf country and Cape York. They're remote, okay? They're out in the wild, these vast areas. And this is exactly where you would think that a 30-foot lizard could live and not be noticed, okay?
Right.
There's no major highways out there. There's no KFC. You know, there's nothing. You know, it's not like you're going to be, you know, waiting on your order at Jimmy John's and look up and go, hey, check out that T-Rex walking down the road. It's not. We are talking about remote.
Yep. Very rare that there are humans in that area.
Yeah. But more importantly, the stories aren't just confined to the oral folklore, okay? You have cattlemen out there, explorers, just people that, you know, like to get out in the wild, you know, travelers, bushmen. You know, there are plenty of non-Aboriginal witnesses that have reported encounters with the Burrunjor,
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some of those.
All right, so let's take a second and talk about tonight's sponsor, MeUndies. Now, I've noticed that summer is when Ashley basically does an audit of her wardrobe.
Yeah.
And so she's always, going through, looking at stuff. Do I wear this? Can I get rid of this? Whatever. Last year, she did that with her underwear drawer. And she basically got rid of everything she had and started buying MeUndies. And they have so many different cuts and styles that she has, I don't know all the ladies' underwear, but she's got a ton of different cuts and styles and everything that she loves. And so she has nothing in her underwear drawer now except MeUndies. I did the same thing. That's all I wear now, but it's because they are so comfortable that once you wear some, you won't want to wear anything else.
Oh, yeah. And there is a style for everyone, from classic black basics to fun, expressive seasonal prints. MeUndies has a look for everyone. Plus, they come in sizes from extra small to 4XL, guaranteeing a flattering cut for everybody. And they have unmatched comfort. MeUndies' signature softer than soft ultramodal fabric is breathable, stretchy, and oh so comfy. And it's perfect for all day wear. If you're not happy with your first pair of MeUndies, it's on MeUndies. Where are you going to find a guarantee like that?
Right.
And with more than 30 million pairs sold and 90,000 five-star reviews, women everywhere are upgrading their underwear game, just like Ashley, just like Amanda, just like all of my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, as a listener of Graveyard Tales, you can get up to 50% off your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/graveyard using our promo code GRAVEYARD, GRAVEYARD.
That's up to 50% off plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/graveyard and use our promo code GRAVEYARD, GRAVEYARD.
In 1950, cattlemen began losing livestock along a stretch from the border country to Burketown in Queensland. And these carcasses weren't clean kills. So it wasn't like there was humans out there taking out people's cattle. Okay. These things were like half eaten.
Yeah.
They had obviously been dragged. And they were left in a pattern, which is even stranger. Like something was moving through the region and grabbing a snack as it went along. Okay. Like, Adam was talking about, it's not necessarily a hunter. It's more along the lines of eating opportunistically.
Yep.
Okay. I'm trucking along and hey, look at that. Look at that big thing. I bet that tastes pretty good. Munch. It's good. You keep going. Hey, there's another one of them things. Munch.
That was tasty last time.
That's right. And so they're like, something came through here and just decided it was going to grab a cow. Okay. Now, search parties formed after seeing this because they thought, okay, we got to figure out what's taking out our cattle because this is affecting our livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also mildly terrifying.
Well, yeah.
That there was something large enough to do this much damage to cattle.
Mm-hmm.
So men set out on horseback to investigate, and they found something. Huge 3-toed tracks, okay? And they were 2 to 3 feet wide, okay? 2 to 3 feet wide.
Yep. That shocked me when I saw that in my notes. You think length 2 to 3 feet? No, this is left to right, 2 to 3 feet wide.
I mean, just picture in your head how big 3 feet is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm 6 foot tall. That's half of me.
Yeah,
would be the width of this foot.
Yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. So if
mildly terrifying, yes.
Yeah, if both feet were standing next to one another, that would be as I could lay down across them, and that would be the same height.
It would be a U for sure. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And one thing that these guys knew for sure is this was not a goanna, which is common. And, a goanna is a large monitor lizard, but nowhere near this size. And they said, well, it's not a kangaroo either. We know how big kangaroo can get. We know how big their feet are. This isn't a kangaroo. And it's not some joker down the road wearing these funny slippers, these are way too big for any of that to be the case. So they followed these tracks through the jungle into a swamp. And this is one of the coolest details about it. When they reached the swamp, the cattle dogs and horses refused to go any further. They just said, yeah, no, wrong.
Yeah.
This is as far as I go.
Yep.
If you want to go, you have fun with that. We're going to stay right here.
Yep. That's self-preservation is what that is.
Yeah. And I don't care how much of a tough guy you think you are, but when your horse says, nope, not going any further, you should listen.
Yes. 100%. 100%.
So most of the men turned back, wisely.
Yep.
But 2 really brave guys, or maybe just really, really stubborn.
Yeah. There's a fine line.
Pressed on foot. And when they reached an open, swampy clearing, one of them saw it. A massive reptilian creature around 30 feet long standing in the timber.
Jeez.
30 feet. Okay? They did not try to talk to it. They didn't try to measure it. They didn't try to capture it. And they did exactly what I would have done. They got the hell out of there.
Yep. They pooed themselves and ran away.
And, that was probably the smartest decision they could have made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But they saw it. They saw it. They saw the tracks, and then they saw the creature and were just shocked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think about it. You walk up and you see basically a dinosaur standing out there. It'd be like that scene in Jurassic Park when Dr. Grant and Ellie Sattler, they look up. Dr. Grant sees it, and then he grabs Ellie's head and turns, look. Will you look at what this is? I can see that. Look at this. Okay, now we need to go.
Yep. Dude reaches over, grabs his buddy's head, and turns it slowly to the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Check this out. Because, the first thing I'm doing is, are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing?
Right.
Because I see a dinosaur.
Yeah. Am I hallucinating?
Yeah, right.
What's going on?
The heat is getting to me because I think I see a T-Rex standing there. So in 1961, a part Aboriginal tracker named Johnny Matthews. Yeah, it doesn't sound like an Aboriginal name. Johnny Matthews. Maybe it is. I don't know. I just thought that sounds like I need a name for this character. How about Johnny Matthews?
Yeah. Well,
this is like straight as you could get, but
it is. There's a lot of Aboriginal names that are that way. They take, when the Europeans moved in, they took them and, I can't pronounce your name, so I'm going to give you.
Well, see, I learn something new every day. I didn't realize that.
I'm going to give you this name, and then.
See, I was thinking that it would be a name I couldn't pronounce.
Mm-hmm. And it would have been if they weren't using the Europeanized name.
Well, then I am very appreciative of Johnny Matthews' name. But so Johnny reported seeing a 25-foot bipedal reptile moving through scrub near Lagoon Creek on the Gulf Coast. And he described what he saw. He said, "Hardly anyone outside my own people believe my story, but I know what I saw." And, you know, that carries a little bit of weight. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, his description matches exactly what those guys saw back in the 50s when they walked up through that swamp and saw what reminded them of a T-Rex. Because even if it's misidentification or the influence of folklore or something that is absolutely unexplainable, Johnny Matthews was convinced, you know, that he saw a giant reptilian creature.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, let's fast forward to the 1970s. Northern Territory bushman and explorer Brian Clark. Okay, this makes a lot more sense now. Okay, these names. Okay. He was mustering cattle in the Urapungee area when he got lost for 3 days. Lost. This doesn't sound like an area that you really want to get lost in.
No.
Okay.
No.
And it's 1970, so he didn't have a GPS. You know, he didn't have a Magellan. You know, that he could. You know, he didn't have one of those Garmin that these, you know, wilderness hikers use. He didn't have none of that. He maybe had a map, and he might not have had that. Okay.
Yeah, and getting lost here is very detrimental to your health, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're lost in the Australian outback, you're basically playing Survivor. Okay, the home game.
Yep.
Okay, but unbeknownst to him, 2 Aboriginal trackers and a mounted policeman were searching for him. And on the first night of their search, they camped near scrubland. After dinner, they settled in, and they heard the normal noises that you hear out in the bush. The policeman woke up to shouting because the trackers were panicking.
That's not a normal bush sound.
Yeah, right.
I would think.
Yeah,
I mean, I've not been there.
I've never been, but I would think two Aboriginal trackers shouting and panicking is not a normal sound, or at least I hope it's not. You
bring them because they wouldn't freak out like that.
Exactly.
They're used to the outback.
You make a great point. Okay. if you've got a guide that is from that area, if they freak out, you should really freak out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because they know what's out there. Yep. If they come across something they don't know how to deal with, you need to be gone.
You should have already been running if they're freaking out.
That's right. Okay. And so he heard this really deep huffing noise, and the ground was shaking. Okay? Shaking. They didn't stick around to investigate it. They gathered their gear and they took off. Now, later, the policeman warned Brian, if you get lost out there again, you're on your own. I'm not going back. And
don't blame him.
That's not really the type of thing that law enforcement says unless something really unsettling happened.
Yeah, I don't blame him, but you're right. That's not normally the law enforcement. Normally they're like, oh, okay.
They're normally like, man, you really need to be careful. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get out. You're going to wind up, we may not be able to find you. You know, you could really get yourself in a lot of trouble. You could get killed out here.
Yep.
You know, no, this guy says, if you do this again, I'm not coming.
You're on your own.
You can forget it. Because whatever was out there, it scared the bejesus out of him.
Yeah.
He said, Sorry, ain't going. Now, let's move up to 1985. And in 1985, the Askey family, which is a family of 4, were traveling toward Roper River Mission. And they took a side road to go sightseeing. And that always is great, especially like in horror movies. You know, hey, let's go sightseeing.
Yeah, it turns out perfectly fine.
Yeah, this is never a good idea, especially out in the daggum bush.
Why are you getting off the main track in the bush? You barely have a main track.
I know. It wasn't that long ago that the police told Brian Clark, we're not coming back if you do this again. And now here, this whole family, hey, let's go over here.
Well, that's people that not used to the bush. And so they're like, oh, well, let's go this way. Not just ignorant to the danger is what it is.
There needs to be a sign that says, if you get lost out here, the police are not coming to look for you. Yep. Okay. You're on your own. But as they were turning around, they saw 2 creatures on the plain, 2 of them. They said they were bipedal, they were grayish brown, and they were dinosaur-like. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any plainer than that. You know. But they didn't stop to try to take any photos.
Good.
And they resumed their journey at the maximum possible speed. Okay. They got on and you know, to be honest, so would I. I would do the exact same thing. Now, let's talk a little bit about the tracks. Now, over the years, there have been multiple 3-toed tracks that not only have been photographed, but they've also been cast. They're always similar, they're always enormous, and they're always about 2 to 3 feet wide. So the most popular theory, it's not a surviving tyrannosaur. I know that we all want it to be, but it is not. It's a giant monitor lizard, which brings us to one of the most fascinating prehistoric reptiles to ever exist. Okay. The megalania.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the scientific name for the megalania is the Varanus. Is it priscus or prisus?
Yeah, I think it's Varanus priscus.
Priscus. That's okay. The SC threw me off. Varanus priscus. Now, the thing to remember is this creature was real. Okay. Mm-hmm. There is no debate here. It was real. It lived in Australia during the Pleistocene period.
Yep.
And it grew to lengths estimated between 18 to possibly over 23 feet long, with some people speculating that it got bigger than this.
I would assume it probably did, but
yeah, it weighed, by estimates, over 1,000 pounds.
Jeez.
It was the largest terrestrial lizard known to science, and it went extinct around 23,000 years ago. Now, that is a very interesting number. 23,000 years ago. And the reason it's interesting is because it means that it overlapped with humans.
Right.
Early Australians absolutely could have encountered the megalania. And some researchers even believe human expansion contributed to its extinction. And it may have been too slow to outrun a coordinated group of human hunters. Okay? I mean, you know, you see the movies and you watch a T-Rex or a T-Rex-like dinosaur move, and they're very swift. They're running down, that scene in the original Jurassic Park where they're all running and they've got those ostrich-looking dinosaurs running with them, and then just out of the blue, here comes a T-Rex from the side, and he just snatches one up.
Mhm.
Okay? I mean, that thing is moving fast, and it's moving quick. But in reality, a giant lizard that weighed near 1,000 pounds probably was not that quick. And so they began to speculate that if humans were around and this thing could have possibly been a threat or even a food source, that a group of hunters could have probably, flanked it and been successful. So that's why they think that humans may have led to the Megalania's extinction. It's possible that it could have just lost its prey as the megafauna disappeared. There was the huge, jungle plants and trees and everything that would have been the home to much larger animals that would have been prey for the Megalania. And as that fauna disappeared, so did those prey animals, and thus eventually the Megalania, because it didn't have anything to eat. But here's where things get a little, wonky. Fossils of the Megalania are rare, and I mean very rare. So what if a small population retreated into dense, unexplored forest and valleys? And Australia has vast regions that are still very sparsely surveyed. And fossilization is rare in human forest environments. So let's consider another creature, the coelacanth. Okay? They thought it was extinct for 66 million years until one showed up in 1938. Like, hey, what y'all doing?
Mm-hmm.
So Megalania would actually benefit from forest cover. Okay? Large body, slow speed, sprawling gait. I mean, it would have been an ambush predator.
Sure.
Just laying low, something comes close, bam. Okay? And modern monitor lizards can rear up briefly on hind legs. It's not something that you typically see them do. And, Adam and I just about a week ago, talked quite a bit about Komodo dragons. So, we talk about large monitor lizards. They can come up with those little front feet that would resemble little useless arms.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if big enough, and terrifying enough, you wouldn't stick around to get a really close look to go, oh, it just went right back down on its front feet.
Yep.
No, you were turning around running.
Yep.
Okay, because it was mildly terrifying. So scale that up a little bit, make a regular monitor lizard a little bit bigger, add a little bit of myth and folklore and isolation. And now you can start seeing how the Burrunjor becomes plausible, at least biologically, if you're willing to stretch out the extinction timelines.
Right. And yeah, like we were talking about, the Aborigines didn't have a bunch of descriptions for the Burrunjor, but they do for the Megalania.
Yeah.
And across many language groups, stories feature these enormous goannas, or monitor lizards, or they call them dragon-like reptiles, and the stories are told about them terrorizing people, eating humans or animals, and they just dominate the landscape. So, like Matt was saying, this seems to be stories that people experienced, not just folklore. This is stories that they watched it happen, or their grandparents watched it happen and it got told down. So these stories involve an animal that's much closer to oversized monitor lizards than to a bipedal theropod.
Yeah.
And forgive me for the pronunciation, but in Uwalare lore, the Mongoongali is a giant goanna, and it attacks people with a venomous bite and an insatiable appetite until other beings steal its, quote, poison bag, and then it shift the venom to snakes. So that's where apparently snakes got their venom and this giant lizard didn't. But other regional traditions talk about monstrous lizards, and they're huge, often multi-limbed or oddly shaped reptilian creatures. Now, these beings, they're quadrupedal, and they're described as giant goannas or dragons, not the upright T-Rex like bipeds, like the Burrunjor.
Right.
They're embedded in specific dreaming stories, totem systems, and moral landscape narratives rather than framed as a living dinosaur. But the Megalania we know existed, and it's now usually called the Varanus priscus, like Matt said. It was a giant monitor lizard from Pleistocene Australia. And I can't get over the fact, I've got it written down too, that it was the largest land-dwelling lizard ever known.
I know.
Insane to me. That I know things got larger in the Pleistocene due to what they say is more oxygen in the environment and bigger fauna and flora and stuff, but it blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Now, the original name for it was Megalania prisca, or the ancient great roamer. Now it's treated as the Varanus priscus, which is part of the monitor lizard group that includes the Komodo dragon that we talked about. And it appears to have survived till just after the arrival of humans in Australia, like Matt was talking about. So it means people encountered it. And it was they're known to find fossils in primarily eastern Australia, Darling Downs and Queensland, but it probably inhabited open woodlands, forest, and grasslands as the apex predator. And the older estimates gave a length of up to about 7 meters or 23 feet. But more recent work suggests something more like 16 to 18 feet is more realistic. But like we said, I believe these things got huge. I mean, the 23 feet probably seems, that seems like it would be an average size if you look at other.
I think it's conservative for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, there was a time when the atmosphere was more oxygen rich than it is now. And that rich oxygen led to larger life forms.
Yep.
And, just based on, and as Adam said, we mentioned earlier, these fossils are rare. So it's not like we have a huge database to pull from to estimate the size of these creatures. So there's a really good chance that there were some that were way, way bigger than this.
For sure. And it was described as a heavily built monitor lizard with a thick body, robust limbs, and looking like a scaled up Komodo dragon. And modern estimates say it weighed around 1,000 to 1,300 pounds. They say making it comparable in mass to a large bear. But this is the smaller end that they're talking about. So obviously, if it got bigger, then you could have something, a ton and a half in weight. it looking like a giant monitor lizard, scare the crap out of you if you saw it in the outback. It had serrated teeth, similar to the Komodo dragons, a strong tail, powerful claws, and it probably held its body in a low, sprawling monitor lizard position. So you see them with their legs kind of spread out, belly close to the ground. Mm-hmm. That's more how it would run. It was considered to be one of the top terrestrial predators of the ecosystem. And it likely hunted large marsupials like giant kangaroos and other sizable animals, as well as smaller mammals, reptiles, and birds. And I keep comparing it to the Komodo dragon, but it's because it's the closest thing we have to it. It would also, like the Komodo dragon, take deer and pigs. Mm-hmm. So opportunistic feeder, it would take what it could get, which that sounds like the stories of the Burrunjor to me. Opportunistic feeder. Mm-hmm. It's going to take down these, whatever it can get its hands on. But like I mentioned venom earlier, because there was some venom mentioned in Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. They say since living large varanids like the Komodo dragon have a venomous bite, a lot of researchers infer that Megalania probably did as well, combining venom, serrated teeth, and a bacterial overload to weaken its prey.
So, hunting down through all this, I came across a Redditor that had an encounter with a very large lizard. Now, mm-hmm. This is a modern day encounter, okay? And this Redditor, his Reddit name is Bardic Innovation. I don't know. Reddit names are crazy.
Yeah.
But he posted this encounter a year ago. But he says that the encounter occurred 17 years ago, which, okay. So it's still in the 2010s, you know, right around 2000, I guess 2009, 2010. So he says 17 years ago, I was driving very late on a Friday night, Saturday morning, roughly 2 a.m., through forestry roads in one of Queensland's Fraser Coast State Forest. He says, I had finished a 10-hour shift at the pub that I worked at, and I was driving 45 minutes out to stay the night with my girlfriend. Now, I was very tired, and that could have affected what I saw. He said, I'm nothing if not a skeptical and logical person and will not embellish factors that could alter the credibility. I was nearing a bend in the road, hugged by the forest on either side, and I slammed my brakes because something was covering the road. He says, it was a big-ass goanna. Tip to tail as long as the road was wide.
Wow.
And all my tired brain thought was, wow, that is a big goanna.
Yeah, that sounds like a sleepy thing to think.
Yeah. I honked my horn and revved my engine, and it crawled off the road, and I drove on. He said, days went by, and Sunday morning, I was leaving to go back home. Said, I drove through the road where I saw the big goanna and had to stop and U-turn back to the location. The road was at least 3 meters wide. So I was quite dumbfounded. I realized if it was a Megalania, it was a smaller one.
Yep.
But the counterpoint, goannas in that region get about 1.5 meters long max.
Mm-hmm.
So no crocodile sightings in that specific location either. It looked, moved, and held itself just like a goanna does. says, is it plausible that Megalania did survive? But much like with most species, when its main food source becomes scarce, it evolves to be smaller, making an offshoot species.
Yep.
He's like, plenty of dingoes, wild boars, and kangaroos in the area, big enough to feed a large meat eater. But much like myself initially, maybe people shrug sightings off as just a big goanna.
Yeah.
So, what he's basically saying is whatever he saw was either the biggest goanna he had ever heard of, much less seen, or a smaller Megalania that could have survived and gradually evolved to be smaller as its primary prey got smaller.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what that story reminded me of, Matt?
What's that?
When he was talking about it and talking about could it be a larger version of the goanna we have now or Megalania, it reminded me of the Yakumama that we talked about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, again, this is an animal that is larger than most species that we know about, and it resembles the species, just a scaled up version of it. So why would it be any different? This Megalania could have evolved, like he said, or the goannas could have evolved, but it's more likely that a Megalania would scale down than a goanna scaling up due to the prey that's there.
Yeah.
And I think, it reminded me of when we talked about the Yakumama. Could it be an actual species, an actual version of this animal that we know about? It's just in such small population that we don't see it often at all, and science doesn't take it seriously yet.
Yeah. And for those of you that maybe haven't heard that episode and are going, what is a Yakumama? The Yakumama is a much, 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 much bigger anaconda in the Amazon region. Okay. And just like with the Megalania, we know that larger species of anaconda existed. Are they still around?
Right.
And much like the Australian outback, the Amazon, it's just not been explored extensively because it's not only is it so dense and large and difficult for humans to explore, it's dangerous as hell.
Very much, yeah.
So getting out there in search of a gigantic anaconda, that's really difficult to do. Much like our buddy Brian Clark, who got lost out in the bush, also not the easiest or safest thing to do. So again, you make a great comparison there. We're talking about a remote area, not just overly explored, not just covered up with humans, that one of these species could have managed to find a way to survive and evolve.
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily talking about, and I hate that about these stories, is because the idea is that a dinosaur survived into the modern day exactly how it was, in its period.
Right.
Well, I mean, no other animals do that. So why would we expect dinosaurs to do that? Why couldn't they evolve as well?
Yeah.
And adapt to their surroundings, adapt to their food source? And, especially with the idea that Megalania went extinct 23,000 years ago, that's pretty recent when we talk about, dinosaurs, So
Yeah, because most scientists put other ones at millions.
Yeah,
So.
Exactly. So it does sound, at least on the surface, that it's a possibility. But as with any other kind of, cryptid or evolved dinosaur or, leftover species that manage to hang around, you get a little bit of controversy.
Oh, sure.
So enter Rex Gilroy. Now, Rex is the most controversial figure in this entire story, okay? He is like a living, breathing controversy.
Yeah.
Now, Gilroy was an Australian paranormal researcher and cryptozoologist who claimed to have investigated the Burrunjor extensively. He reported dozens of giant reptilian footprints across Australia. He made casts. He published books. He promoted the theory that dinosaurs survived in the outback. He even claimed to have found Aboriginal pictographs of dinosaurs, which, again, goes to this idea where humans and dinosaurs didn't really hang out together.
Yep, supposedly.
But, he says he found these cave drawings that prove that they did. Mm-hmm. But here's the problem. And a lot of researchers point this out. None of Gilroy's Burrunjor accounts appear in contemporaneous newspaper archives. There's no other documentation of it. Many key witnesses cannot be independently verified. And the term Burrunjor itself does not appear in Aboriginal cosmology outside of Rex Gilroy's work.
Right.
Now, in Arnhem Land cosmology, Burrunjor actually refers to a trickster demigod figure, not a dinosaur. Go ahead.
If it's a trickster demigod, couldn't it shapeshift into a dinosaur?
I guess so.
I mean, just thinking it. We hear about tricksters in Native American folklore that shapeshift. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the Australian skinwalker. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
But what, I like that idea. I didn't consider that at all until you just said it.
Yeah.
But I like that idea. But what about those cave paintings? Critics say that they are stylistically inconsistent with genuine Aboriginal rock art. Okay? That's a nice way of saying it's BS. Okay.
Yeah, forgery.
Yeah. Some claim that they look suspiciously modern, possibly even chalk. Go look them up. I'm not going to tell you. You go look them up yourself. Look, Rex Gilroy Burrunjor cave drawings.
All right, I'm looking now.
You be the judge, and you tell me if you think there was a box of Crayola chalk in Rex Gilroy's pocket. But there's the footprint issue. Okay, when researchers compare Gilroy's casts to authentic dinosaur tracks or authentic. He just found them.
I did. Yeah, that looks like a kid with sidewalk chalk drew that.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna get into my opinion on this in a minute.
Right. But I won't say anything. But yeah.
but the footprints. So when they compare these casts to authentic dinosaur tracks or authentic monitor lizard prints, they don't match. Mm-hmm. They are overly simple. 3 flat toes, minimal anatomical detail. Almost if someone made a crude mold of a 3-toed foot and shoved it into soft soil. Mm-hmm. And perhaps the most damning of Gilroy's research is he never produced any long trackway photographs. okay? Like, it's always a single footprint.
Yeah.
It's not multiples, okay?
Oh, it's a one-legged hopping Burrunjor.
Yeah, boing, boing. It's Cubert, okay?
Yeah.
It's bouncing along on one leg.
And it has a really long stride.
Yeah. And a lot of people speculate that the reason that he hasn't done any long trackway photographs is because creating a full, consistent trackway would be extremely difficult to fake.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to mimic, a path, okay, that a creature would have walked, okay? A creature that you're estimating how big it was. Okay, even for the witnesses, they are estimating how big this thing is.
Yeah.
To get the stride right, to get the pressure right, and to do that multiple times to produce what an outside researcher could go, well, this is consistent with other things that we know. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's really, really tough.
And you said the pressure, that's true, because when you walk, any creature walks, there's a flexing and bending of the foot.
Yeah.
So you would have to be able to get that into the soil to make it believable.
Yeah, and especially if we're talking about a three-toed animal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with 3 toes, all the parts of that foot are and those toes are going to be involved in that gait pattern. It's not going to be like humans with your pinky toe hanging out there going along for the ride. All 3 of those toes are going to be involved in maintaining a creature of this size balance, especially if it's bipedal.
Yep.
Okay. So that's going to be really, really difficult. So creating a single impression is much, much easier. So Gilroy just a passionate believer or an overzealous researcher? Confirmation bias. I want this to be, I'm convinced that this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be real. So I influence my own research by wanting it to be real so bad. Or is it something else? The Burrunjor legend as we know it today largely comes from Rex Gilroy. And yet, independent reports of giant reptiles in Australia do exist outside of his work. So we really are kind of wading into a weird cryptozoological gray area. Okay. Yep. And this was what I said. This is my opinion. People that do this kind of stuff, they undercut the actual research and evidence
100%
of other people. So I remember hearing this. I was listening to a podcast about it. I think it was like Dateline or something. Anyway, it was a court case, and they were like, the attorney was saying, he said, one of the things you have to do, he said, when you're trying to portray a witness as being untruthful, he goes, you don't have to prove that they're lying about what they're testifying about. You just have to show that they're lying about anything, something. Right. Because if they're lying about one thing, they could be lying about this. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if he made this up, it ruins all the rest of his research, no matter how valid it may be, along with everyone else's.
And we've talked about that with the Bigfoot cases. People that falsify Bigfoot encounters just undermine all of the legit sightings. And you and I have railed against that for a while. These hoaxers that are intentionally trying to trick people totally screw up our look into these animals, because it's exactly like you were saying with the witness. the people who are dead set against there being a large monitor lizard in Australia, they don't have to at all say anything about the more legitimate sightings. All they need to do is go, look at this dude over here who faked this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, everybody who hears it and has no other opinions about it go, oh, well, yeah, that's fake.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
This one guy faked it. It's the Patty stuff, Patterson-Gimlin.
Mm-hmm.
There have been recent things that came out that it is not a falsified video, but because some dude who got the name Bigfoot started walked around with fake feet in the thing, and they go, oh, well, see, these weren't real prints, so none of it's real.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
It just completely ruins it for everybody. Mm-hmm. So understanding all that and looking at it through that lens, what do we really think this could be? Okay. There are we covered, a good 4 or 5 sightings across about a 50-year span. Believe these people or don't, there's evidence that whatever they saw, it completely terrified them.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a surviving T-Rex? Biologically, that is almost impossible. It's the wrong ecosystem. It's the wrong prey, the wrong atmospheric conditions. So that is highly doubtful. Could it be a relic population of giant monitor lizards? Now, that is much more plausible because Australia still has enormous parenti lizards that reach over 8 feet long.
Right.
So you scale that up historically, like we said, increased oxygen, larger animals, larger prey. Okay. You do that and you're halfway to megalania.
Yeah.
Okay. But 25 to 30 feet and bipedal, that's where it begins to really stretch. Now, unless these eyewitnesses are exaggerating the size, which humans absolutely do when they're frightened,
sure,
a 12-foot lizard seen in tall grass can quickly become 25 feet in memory, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you think back and you're scared, it was humongous, okay? That rat snake that I killed, several years ago was an anaconda when Amanda talks about it. I'm telling you.
Right.
And I love this. Fear stretches tape measures. Okay. It just does.
That's a good quote.
But this right here is fascinating. These reports cluster in remote regions, swamplands, scrub, floodplains, areas where visibility is poor and wildlife is already extreme. Okay. Even if it's not a T-Rex walking around, the things that are out there are at far ends of the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
And animals behave strangely. Horses refusing to move, dogs panicking. That detail repeats across a lot of cryptic cases all around the world. Okay. But does that prove anything? No. But it keeps the story alive. Okay. Yep. So the bigger question here is if something like megalania survived, it wouldn't need a massive breeding population if its territory was huge. And Australia's interior is vast.
Mm-hmm.
But large apex predators usually leave clear ecological footprints, like carcasses and scat and skeletal remains. But yet we have no verified body, no confirmed DNA, no high-resolution footage. And in 2026, everyone carries a 4K camera in their pocket. But there's nothing definitive. But the stories persist. Tracks appear, they disappear, they reappear. And somewhere in the Gulf country or Cape York, someone is still telling their friend, you wouldn't believe what I saw. Okay? So is the Burrunjor real? if you're thinking strictly zoologically, probably not as it's described. A 25 to 30 foot bipedal lizard similar to a T-Rex, probably not. Is it possible that rare, unusually large monitor lizards roam remote Australia? Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no doubt that that's a possibility.
Yep.
And is it possible that ancient human encounters with megalania shaped the folklore? Well, that's probably the most accurate thing out of this whole story.
Right.
You know, myths tend to preserve memory. And if early Australians saw 20-foot predatory lizards, those stories would stick around for thousands of years.
Yep.
So until somebody captures one on film or drags a 25-foot lizard into a wildlife office, or one walks in and says, I'd like to become a citizen, please.
Yep.
You know, something crazy.
Can I get a driver's license?
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to speculate. We're going to debate. We're going to tell these stories because the stories are amazing.
Yep.
And there might still be something out there. But what do you guys think? You know, is it possible? Is it possible? We don't think that it's a T-Rex. So let's just slide that off a little bit. Is it possible that there is a giant monitor lizard that has persisted for thousands of years in the Australian outback and it's still hanging around out there, and that over the last 50, 60 years, people have encountered it, enough
I'm
to be
totally
terrified
on
to
board.
tell their friends?
Yep. I'm totally on board with that.
I am too.
Because it is the right ecosystem, the right prey, everything for a large monitor lizard to be able to survive. And like we said, megalania could have evolved over thousands of years to become a little bit smaller and to be able to keep up with the prey. Because, again, the larger ones would die off quicker because they couldn't feed themselves. So the smaller ones would stay around because, I got wild pig and kangaroo I can eat, but I don't have giant kangaroo anymore.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It would make sense that would happen, and then they would be just enough, like there'd be just enough of them to keep a population going, but not enough to be seen everywhere like kangaroo because the food source is not there.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, but you're talking to a guy who I believe that the thylacine is still out there. So
I think there's, in fact, I think there's more evidence that the thylacine is still around.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. It's the same situation, same location.
Same location.
You can't possibly begin to explore all of the outback. I mean, you just can't do it. And could something like that stick around? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honest, I think the Yakumama is still around.
Me too.
And it might not be the mythical Yakumama that people describe, but could it be a gigantic anaconda that's just lived for a really long time? Absolutely.
You bet your butt it could be.
I mean, because I'm not going to go hunting for it.
No. No, I'm going to leave that to the professionals and the crazy people.
And, you talk about it when your prey gets smaller, the predators get smaller. So it makes me wonder if McDonald's went out of business and we couldn't get a Big Mac and all we had was like Crystal and White Castles, would we all get a little smaller?
I think so. We'd all become like maybe 4 foot tall. And
but
then the Crystal would look huge like a Big Mac.
That's exactly it. Our hands would get smaller. It's like Barbie hands holding.
Yep.
But tell us, what do you guys think? And the best place to do this is in our Facebook group. It's called The Graveyard. We have thousands of folks in there sharing stories just like this, opinions, asking for help, jokes, you name it. It's a It's an amazing place. So if you're not already in there, go check it out. And don't forget to go check out our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show and you can become a patron. And thank you so much to everyone who has donated to the work that Adam and I do. We appreciate it so much. We cannot thank you enough. So we have a huge catalog of bonus content.
Yep.
And it's our way of saying thank you. We appreciate it. And we feel like it is a tremendous value. If you need a little bit more Graveyard Tales in your life, if you enjoy hearing Adam and I talk, I mean, hey, look, Adam and Ashley listen to us all the time and they're still around. So
Amanda.
What did I say?
Me? You said Adam?
Oh.
I was like, yeah, I have to listen to
Amanda. There's too many A's.
I know.
Okay?
There's a
Amanda
lot of us.
and Ashley are still around. They enjoy hearing us talk. So maybe you would too.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It brings us up the charts and it helps people find the show, which just brings more people in to the graveyard. So until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.